Hola, me llamo T.
Me llamo Jay.
Somos Jungle.
And these are our 3 questions. I think a record we would always go back to and always have gone back to is Tame Impala, In a Speaker. I think it was a classic when it was released and still is, you know. Obviously Kevin is super talented, and you know, the songs and the sound of that album were super inspiring to us. I think you found the record originally.
I found it in a record shop in Soho in London, and I had never listened to it before, and I had never heard of Tame Impala, but I saw the artwork, and it's that crazy, like, psychedelic, like, amazing treescape, and just picked it up and was like, wow, man, that looks like it's going to sound great. And I put it on and it sounded amazing. So yeah, I took it back and shared it with everyone. And yeah, it's one of those albums that really has a kind of feeling, a really like honest, natural feeling to it. And that's all you really want to look for in music. We were lucky enough to meet him on a few times at festivals. He's a really nice dude, man. Like, it's nice when you meet artists who are passionate about what they do. They're passionate about other music, you know, about other artists. I think it's quite easy for some musicians to be like, no, I don't like. You know, it's like they see other musicians as competition. But I think Kevin's very open to everything and every suggestion.
I think. Have you got one in mind?
Yeah, I was going to go for probably like Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys. No way, snap.
That's mental.
I mean, it's an absolute classic. We were both lucky enough to be introduced to that record when we were quite young, when we were like 15 or 16. And I mean, the songs are incredible. He writes amazing pop songs, the way that it was arranged and produced.
Wasn't God Only Knows his answer to the Beatles track?
Well, the whole record, so, you know, the Beatles made Sgt. Pepper's. Brian Wilson was like, I want to make a record that's that incredible, that's going to be that famous and that seminal. And so, yeah, he took himself away from everything and put together an incredible group of musicians in a studio in LA and made that record. And I don't think we understand as modern musicians what it takes to make a record sound like that now, or in those days, because he only had like tape and like 4 tracks or 8 tracks. And so constantly bouncing down to the tape, to one tape, back to one tape. And there's some amazing mistakes on that record, you know, like some of the sounds that he put on the album were references to some of the lyrics, but then the record company asked him to change some of the lyrics. So there's just like random sounds that are meant to be associated with one thing, but it ends up being almost like a weird accident. And that's what's great about those albums, you know, you only really had one chance to make it, and if there's a mistake, there's a mistake, and that's what's beautiful, and that's almost what we try and look for a lot in our own music as well. You know, the reason why Sgt. Pepper's as an album exists is because the Beatles realised that they couldn't play live anymore, because the technology for the speakers and the sound systems wasn't good enough for them to be heard over the crowd, the noise of the crowd. So they went back into the studio in Abbey Road and were like, wow, we now have complete freedom. We don't have to think about how we're going to conceive this live, so let's just go and make a crazy record. And look what happened.
I'm trying to think of a new one or an old one perhaps. Maybe Air, Moon Safari. Yeah, so if we're talking about albums that we kind of come back to, you know, there's a lot of great new artists that you're into, but, you know, great albums that you come back to. I think we both bonded over that record, and I remember my dad had it burnt on CD, copyright, but he had it when I was about 10 years old, and I was always fascinated by that record and the way it sounded. And as we grew older, I think we got more and more into it.
But yeah, it's a really interesting record, because it's one of those albums when you're a kid, like the idea of electronic music is maybe a little bit scary. It sounds like electronic music when you're a kid is like, oh, what is it, like techno, or is it too like hard, or? But there's such an amazing, beautiful human emotion across that whole album. And you know, this is the first time we'd really heard music, like modern music, that used like soundscapes. You know, the first track, like you have the thunderstorm rolling in and the rain on La Femme d'Argent, and
I think, yeah, it started our love affair with, you know, French duos. You know, I think you could go on then and talk about, you know, Justice and Cross, the first Justice record.
A big influence on us.
Definitely had a, you know, we keep going back to that. It's an upbeat record that we you know, we play tracks like Genesis before we go on stage, and you know, it's sort of one of those songs that it's got a lot of, you know, it's an emotion. You know, not many people do like anger and like tension very well. You know, at the moment we've got a lot of music which is sort of kind of nice and sexy and, you know, smooth, and there's I don't think, I mean, name bands that have really done like aggressive really well, like Beastie Boys, you know, like Sabotage, you know, like
Rage Against the Machine.
Songs that make you go, yeah.
But there's still, it's not just like metal. It's not like that. I don't really understand metal very much, but I guess that's the closest we get to that in a way. Do you know what I mean?
I just started listening to a friend of ours' band. It's kind of anonymous, called Salt, S-A-U-L-T. It's got a really kind of cool, soulful vibe, and I think they're going to do really great things. I don't know if they'll ever play live, but the record sounds amazing, and the songs are really cool. It's kind of got an old, sort of soulful, funky feel, a little bit like ESG, perhaps, in some respects. I think also Matty, I don't know if you're not so much into the Matty records, the guy from, I know you're a big fan of.
Bad, Bad, Not Good, yeah, he's the keyboard player, right?
He went and did like a solo, it's kind of a psyche, almost Beach Boys inspired record. It's a beautiful record.
And I'm listening to an EP called Super Sad Generation by a London singer, a female London singer called Arlo Parks. And like the lead single off that is called Cola, and it's got such a great vibe. It's one of those songs that you really like wish that you'd worked on or played yourself, because it's got this weird like double bass line that, you know, you don't really hear that often. It's almost like got two basses playing at the same time to give it this weird shape and harmony, and the drum beat's amazing and super simple, and yeah, her voice is very unique, and it's almost like she's like really captured the tone of being a teenage girl in London at the moment. I've got to say that I saw Beyonce last year at Coachella. Yeah. Beyonce at Coachella, yeah. And I mean, just the level of thought and technique, like performance value, the staging was incredible. The way that she had the whole live band on the seats up above, it was just something that I really didn't expect from her. You know, you don't necessarily expect that from modern artists, to really take that much effort to create a stage show that it was pretty overwhelming, really, and for her to really step up and deliver to everybody, you know, she really lived up to her name as the queen, because she was just amazing. And how she, you know, I've heard that she trains her voice so when she's dancing, so she can sing still strongly. So she sings while she's running on a treadmill every day, just like sprinting and singing and sprinting and singing at the same time, just so she has the power still to do all of that movement and to dance like that. Yeah, that really like blew my head open.
Well, I think the same festival, Coachella, I saw Soulwax play. And we kind of grew up listening to Soulwax, Belgium band actually, and they played, and it was all white lighting, and that was really cool. As well as Jack White, you know. Jack White's also really great. There's a lot of energy in that show as well.
And Brian Wilson stayed on the studio and sent the other guys to tour and do all the gigs.
Sounds like a good idea.
A friend of mine saw them at Sonar Festival, the Spanish festival, and he told me that Justice was like one of the loudest, maybe the loudest show he ever.
Yeah, I saw them at Glastonbury. You saw them at Pukkelpop. Yeah. It's just like, it's intense, yeah, and the stage show is amazing. Earplugs. Yeah.
Earplugs, yeah. And even with that, he said like, I can't believe that people are like with the this so.
Las tres preguntas.
Wanna try it?
Las tres preguntas.
Yeah, we can try it. Yeah.
How do you say we are? No somos.
Want to try it in Spanish?
No somos jungle.
Somos jungle
Somos
y
jungle.
estas son
Somos
las
jungle.
3 preguntas.
Say again.
Somos jungle
Hola,
y estas son
y estas
las
son
3 preguntas.
Yes.
Yeah, you can give it a try.